What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're telling a story about the unexpected connections that can save us when we feel most alone. It's about struggle, it's about survival, and it's about how a message sent out into the void was answered by a legend. This one will hit you in the heart, so stick with us. And if you believe in the power of music and human kindness, do us a favor and hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss stories that matter. The city of Long Beach, California, has a rhythm all its own. A laid-back pulse that beats under the warm Pacific sun. For Dana Martinez, a 28-year-old graphic designer, this rhythm had been the soundtrack to her entire life. She lived in a small but neat bungalow, the kind with a small porch and a stubbornly cheerful bougainvillea crawling up the side. Her days were once measured in color palettes and client deadlines. Her nights in quiet evenings with friends and the familiar coastal breeze. But one gray Tuesday in late autumn, the rhythm of her life stuttered and fell silent. The diagnosis came like a thief in the night. Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was a cold, clinical term that landed with the force of a physical blow, sucking all the air from the sterile doctor's office. Cancer. The word hung in the air, ugly and invasive, instantly rewriting the future she had so carefully planned. Her world, once vibrant and full of promise, shrank to the four walls of her home and the beige corridors of the hospital. The initial shock soon gave way to a grueling routine of chemotherapy. Each session was a descent into a personal hell, a chemical warfare waged inside her own body. The vibrant energy that had once defined her was replaced by a profound, bone-deep fatigue. Her hair, once a cascade of dark curls, began to fall out in clumps, a tangible sign of the battle she was losing. She felt like a ghost haunting her own life, a pale imitation of the woman she used to be. The urban landscape of Long Beach, once a source of comfort and inspiration, became a painful reminder of a life that was no longer hers. The sight of joggers on the beach, the sound of laughter from a nearby park, the smell of food from her favorite taco truck, it all felt like a world away. She was isolated by her illness, trapped in a bubble of fear and physical misery. Friends tried to reach out, but their well-meaning words often felt hollow, unable to penetrate the fog of her despair. Her apartment, once a sanctuary of creativity, began to feel like a prison. The canvases leaned against the wall, untouched. Her design tablet gathered dust on her desk. The vibrant colors she once loved to work with now seemed to mock her, a stark contrast to the grayness that had enveloped her soul. Sleep offered little respite, her nights filled with anxious thoughts and the persistent metallic taste of the chemo drugs. The silence in her home was deafening, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic beating of her own heart. She would spend hours just staring out the window, watching the world go on without her. The palm trees swayed in the breeze, indifferent to her suffering. Cars drove by, their occupants living lives she could no longer imagine for herself. A profound sense of loneliness settled over her, a weight that felt heavier than the illness itself. She was adrift in a sea of normalcy, her own silent screams swallowed by the everyday sounds of the city. The emotional toll was as devastating as the physical one. Hope became a flickering flame, constantly threatened by the winds of doubt and fear. There were days when giving up felt like the only logical option, a surrender to the overwhelming tide of sickness. She would look at her pale, drawn face in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. The fight was relentless, and she was so tired. This was her new reality, a monotonous cycle of treatments, nausea, and crushing exhaustion. The vibrant tapestry of her life had been reduced to a single frayed thread. She felt herself unraveling, piece by piece, with each passing day. The world she knew had faded to black and white, and she had forgotten what it felt like to see in color. The music of her life had stopped, and all she could hear was the static of her illness. Dana's journey was a testament to the isolating nature of chronic illness. The world doesn't stop for your pain. It keeps spinning, leaving you behind. The struggle is often silent, fought in the quiet moments of the early morning or the lonely hours of the night. It is a battle waged not just against a disease, but against the despair that threatens to consume you whole. In this quiet crucible of suffering, the hero's journey truly begins. It is not about grand gestures or epic battles, but about the small, almost imperceptible acts of defiance. It is about finding a reason to get out of bed when every fiber of your being screams at you to stay down. It is about searching for a glimmer of light in the suffocating darkness. For Dana, that glimmer of light would come from the most unexpected of places. It wouldn't be a new medical breakthrough or a sudden miraculous turn of events. It would be a voice from the past, a rhythm from the streets of her own city, a sound she hadn't truly listened to in years, a sound that would become her lifeline. This was the backdrop of her life when everything changed. The city hummed on, oblivious to the war being fought inside a small bungalow on a quiet street. But a shift was coming, a change in the beat, a reminder that even in the deepest silence, a powerful melody can break through and start to heal what's broken. One particularly grueling afternoon, after a chemotherapy session that had left her feeling utterly depleted, Dana lay on her couch, a thin blanket pulled up to her chin. The television was on, its volume low, playing some mindless daytime show that did nothing to distract her from the throbbing in her bones. She felt a familiar wave of hopelessness wash over her, cold and suffocating. She closed her eyes, wishing she could just disappear into the cushions and never wake up. Fumbling for the remote, she decided to switch to a music channel, anything to break the oppressive silence. She scrolled aimlessly through the options, past the glossy pop videos and the angsty rock anthems. Nothing resonated. It all felt like noise from another universe, a universe she no longer belonged to. She was about to turn it off when she landed on a channel playing classic 90s hip-hop videos. The screen flickered, and then a familiar scene. A low-rider bouncing down a sun-drenched California street. The opening notes of Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice filled the room. It was a sound deeply woven into the fabric of her youth, the soundtrack to backyard barbecues and cruising down the Pacific Coast Highway with her friends. The laid-back, almost lazy beat, the smooth melodic flow of Snoop's voice. It was a sound she hadn't intentionally sought out in years, but it felt like coming home. The music was pure, unapologetic Long Beach. She lay there, listening, and for the first time in months, a genuine emotion other than sadness or fear stirred within her. The music wasn't just a collection of notes and words, it was an atmosphere. It painted a picture of a world she knew intimately, a world of sun, confidence, and effortless cool. A world where problems were handled with a shrug and a smooth rhyme. It was a world so far removed from her current reality, yet it felt incredibly close. A switch had been flipped. She found her old MP3 player, the one she hadn't touched since her diagnosis, and began to build a new playlist. It started with Snoop's classics from Doggy Style. The raw energy of Who Am I? What's My Name? Became a strange source of empowerment. In a time when she felt like she was losing her identity, the song was a defiant roar, a reclamation of self. Her listening sessions became a ritual. During the long, draining hours of chemotherapy, she would put in her earbuds and close her eyes. The sterile, chemical smell of the infusion room would be replaced by the imagined scent of a summer barbecue. The rhythmic beeping of the IV machine would fade into the background, drowned out by the deep bass lines and funky synths of G-Funk. The music became her armor. It wasn't about the lyrical content in a literal sense. She wasn't rolling down the street, sipping on gin and juice. But the vibe, that was the medicine. The unflappable, cool-headed confidence in Snoop's delivery became a mantra for her. It was a voice that said, "Yeah, things are tough, but we keep it cool. We roll with it. We stay smooth." It was a message of resilience, delivered not with a preachy tone, but with an irresistible groove. She delved deeper into his discography, discovering the evolution of his artistry. The more introspective, reggae-infused tracks from his reincarnated phase as Snoop Lion brought a different kind of comfort. Songs about peace, love, and finding a higher ground resonated with her search for meaning amidst the chaos of her illness. It showed a side of him that was about growth and change, a narrative that mirrored her own hopes for recovery. The music became a form of therapy, a way to reclaim her mental space from the disease. When the waves of nausea hit, she would focus on a bass line. When the fear of the future crept in, she would let the rhythm anchor her to the present moment. The songs were a portal to a state of mind where she was strong, in control, and unafraid. Her doctors and nurses began to notice a change. There was a new light in her eyes, a flicker of the old Dana returning. She would sometimes hum along to the music in her headphones, a small smile playing on her lips. They didn't know the source of this transformation, but they saw its effects. She was fighting back, not just with medicine, but with a renewed spirit. This musical lifeline pulled her through the darkest days. It was a constant companion, a steady beat in the chaotic symphony of her life. Snoop Dogg's music, born from the very streets she called home, had become the unlikely anthem of her survival. It was a testament to the power of art to heal, to transport, to remind us of who we are when we've forgotten. The chemotherapy continued. The fight was far from over. But now, she had a soundtrack for the battle. She was no longer just a patient. She was a warrior with a G-funk beat in her heart. And with every song, she felt a little stronger, a little more like herself. The color was slowly starting to return to her world, one funky note at a time. Months passed, and the grueling rhythm of treatment continued. Yet, something fundamental had shifted within Dana. The music had rekindled a spark, a resilience she thought had been extinguished forever. One evening, as the California sky outside her window bled into shades of orange and purple, she was scrolling through her phone, Snoop Dogg's Young, Wild and Free playing softly from her laptop. A feeling of immense gratitude washed over her, so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. It was a gratitude not just for the music itself but for the man behind it, an artist she had never met, who had no idea she even existed, had inadvertently become one of the most important figures in her life. His voice had been a constant presence in her loneliest moments, a source of strength when she had none left. She felt an overwhelming urge to thank him, to let him know the profound impact his art had on her struggle. The idea seemed absurd at first. Who was she to think that a global superstar like Snoop Dogg would ever see a message from a random fan? He must get thousands of messages a day, a constant stream of praise and requests. Hers would just be a drop in an endless ocean of digital noise. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the social media app on her phone. The familiar voice of self-doubt whispered in her ear, telling her it was a foolish, pointless exercise. But then she looked around her small apartment. She saw the stack of books she had started reading again, the sketchbook with a few new drawings, the vibrant colors of the bougainvillea outside her window that she had started to notice once more. These were all small victories, milestones, on her road back to life, and the music had been the catalyst for it all. She owed it to herself and to him to try. With a deep breath, she opened a new message. She didn't want it to be a simple, "Hey, love your music." She wanted him to understand the depth of her gratitude, to see the connection she felt. She began to type, her thumbs moving slowly at first, then with increasing confidence. She poured her heart out, detailing her diagnosis, the despair, and the crushing loneliness of her fight. She was brutally honest, not for pity, but for context. She described the moment she rediscovered his music, how the sound of gin and juice had broken through the fog. She wrote about listening to Doggy Style during chemo, how the beats became a shield against the pain and fear. She explained how his cool, unbothered demeanor had become a source of inspiration for her own battle, a reminder to stay strong and composed even when everything was falling apart. She told him that his music was more than just entertainment. It was medicine for her soul. It had transported her from the sterile hospital room back to the sun-drenched streets of Long Beach, reminding her of the life she was fighting to get back to. She wrote that in her darkest hours, his voice had felt like that of an old friend, a familiar presence in the isolating silence of her illness. It was a lifeline. She reread the message several times, her heart pounding in her chest. It was raw, emotional, and deeply personal. It was a vulnerable piece of her soul, laid bare for a stranger to see. A part of her wanted to delete it all, to retreat back into the safety of anonymity. It felt too big, too exposed. But the gratitude she felt was stronger than her fear. She had to send it. She found his official public page, the one with millions of followers and a constant stream of activity. The chances of it being seen felt infinitesimal. But she'd come this far. She took one last, shaky breath, closed her eyes and pressed send. The message disappeared from her screen, sent out into the vast, impersonal expanse of the internet. For a moment, nothing happened. The world didn't stop. Her life didn't change. She was still just Dana, a woman in a small bungalow in Long Beach, fighting for her life. A wave of anticlimax washed over her. What had she expected? A miraculous, instantaneous reply? She felt a little foolish, a little naive. She put her phone down and tried to push the message out of her mind. It was done. She had said what she needed to say, and that would have to be enough. The act of writing it, of articulating her gratitude, had been cathartic in itself. Whether he ever saw it or not didn't really matter, she told herself. But, of course, it did matter. A small, hopeful part of her couldn't help but wonder. Would he see it? Would he understand? Would the man whose music had saved her spirit ever know the role he had played in her survival? She had cast her message in a bottle out into the digital ocean, and now, all she could do was wait. The sun had now completely set, and the lights of the city began to twinkle to life. Dana sat in the growing darkness, the silence of her apartment, feeling different this time. It wasn't the silence of despair, but the quiet hum of anticipation. A tiny seed of hope had been planted, and she waited to see if it would grow. Video transitions to show Dana's message, written out on screen, with a soft, hopeful musical score underneath. The host returns for a mid-video call to action. Host voiceover. An incredible act of courage, right? To lay your soul bare like that. We've all had moments where a song or an artist has gotten us through something tough. Who is that artist? For you, let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you're finding this story as moving as we are, please, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us bring more stories like this to you. Now, let's see what happened next. For 2 days, there was nothing. Dana tried her best to forget about the message, focusing on her routine and trying to manage her expectations. She knew the odds were astronomical. Her message was likely buried under an avalanche of other notifications, lost in the digital ether. She even started to feel a bit of regret, a post-vulnerability hangover that made her cringe slightly at her own emotional honesty. Then, on the 3rd day, her phone buzzed with an unusual notification. It wasn't a text from a friend or an email from her doctor. It was a notification from the social media platform she had used to send the message. Her heart skipped a beat. With trembling hands, she unlocked her phone and opened the app. And there it was. A reply. Not from a fan account, not from a bot, but from the official verified account of Snoop Dogg. She had to read it 3 times to believe it was real. Her eyes scanned the words, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The reply wasn't a generic pre-written response from a social media manager. It had a voice. It was personal. It was unmistakably him. It was a short, simple message, but it carried the weight of genuine compassion and a depth of understanding that stunned her. The message read, "Keep your head up, Queen. Your strength is amazing. We all soldiers in this life, just fightin' different. Wars. Glad my music could be your shield. Long Beach stands with you. Nothing but love for you. Stay strong." The words were simple, but they were infused with the same laid-back, sincere coolness that defined his music. It was perfect. Dana just stared at her phone, tears welling up in her eyes and spilling down her cheeks. These weren't tears of sadness or pain. They were tears of pure, unadulterated joy and validation. He had seen her. He had heard her. In that moment, she felt a profound connection, a sense of being seen and acknowledged that was more powerful than any medicine. The loneliness that had been her constant companion for so long finally, mercifully, receded. He had called her Queen, a simple word, but it was a coronation. It was a recognition of her dignity, her strength, and her worth, at a time when she felt like none of those things. He hadn't pitied her. He had empowered her. He had framed her struggle not as a tragedy, but as a battle, and he had called her a soldier. It was exactly what she needed to hear. The phrase "Long Beach stands with you" resonated deeply. It was a reminder that she was part of something bigger, a community, a city with a shared identity. It was a message from her hometown, delivered through its most famous son. It made her feel anchored, supported, and proud of where she came from. The city that had once felt like a painful reminder of a lost life now felt like a fortress at her back. She read the message again and again, letting the words sink in. It was a small act of kindness from him, something that probably took him less than a minute to type. But for her, it was a life-altering event. It was a validation of her struggle, a recognition of her pain, and a powerful infusion of hope that went straight to her soul. The darkness that had clung to her for so long seemed to lift, chased away by the light of the simple, heartfelt message. In that moment, Snoop Dogg was no longer just a celebrity or a musician to her. He was a kindred spirit, a fellow human, being who had taken a moment to extend a hand of compassion to a stranger in need. He had used his massive platform not just for self-promotion, but for genuine human connection. He had seen her pain and responded with love. The impact of his reply was immediate and profound. It was like a shot of adrenaline to her spirit. A renewed sense of purpose surged through her. If this legend, this icon, could see her as a strong, fighting queen, then maybe she could start to see herself that way too. She wasn't just a cancer patient anymore. She was a warrior, with a shield of G-Funk and a blessing from the Dogg father himself. The fight was still hers to win, the road to recovery still long and arduous, but now she walked it with a different kind of strength. She was no longer fighting alone in the silence. She had an army of beats at her back and the support of a king. The reply was more than just a message, it was a turning point. She saved a screenshot of the message, making it the wallpaper on her phone. It became her talisman, a constant reminder of the day her voice was heard. Every time she felt her resolve weaken, every time the fear crept back in, she would look at those words. "Keep your head up, Queen." And she would. This single act of kindness demonstrated the immense power that people have to lift each other up. It showed that empathy doesn't require grand gestures or huge sacrifices. Sometimes all it takes is a few carefully chosen words, sent from one human being to another. A small moment of connection that can change a life forever. Dana had assumed the exchange would remain a private moment of connection, a personal treasure she would keep for herself. She had taken a screenshot for her own motivation, but she hadn't shared it publicly. However, in the vast, interconnected world of social media, nothing stays private for long, especially when it involves a figure as iconic as Snoop Dogg. Another fan scrolling through the comments on Snoop's page, noticed the interaction. They took a screenshot of Dana's original heartfelt message and Snoop's incredibly compassionate reply, and posted it with a simple caption. "This is the coolest thing you'll see all day. Snoop is a real one." The post started to get a few likes, then a few retweets. Within hours, it had been picked up by a popular hip-hop blog. From there, it exploded. The story went viral. The headline, "Cancer Survivor Tells Snoop Dogg How His Music Helped Her." The rapper's reply goes public began appearing on entertainment news sites, local news outlets, and eventually, major national news aggregators. Dana's phone began to buzz incessantly, not with single notifications, but with a constant, overwhelming flood of them. Her personal social media accounts were inundated with friend requests and messages from strangers. At first, the attention was jarring and a little frightening. She was a private person who had just shared her most vulnerable struggle with one person, not with the entire world. But as she began to read the messages and comments pouring in, her fear gave way to astonishment. The response was overwhelmingly, breathtakingly positive. People weren't just reacting to Snoop's kindness, they were reacting to her story. Thousands of messages of support flooded her inbox. People from all over the country, from all walks of life, reached out to share their own stories of struggle and survival. Other cancer patients told her she had given them hope. Music lovers shared stories of how their favorite artists had gotten them through tough times. Parents of sick children thanked her for her bravery. The outpouring of love and solidarity was a tidal wave of human kindness. The public's reaction was a testament to the universal need for stories of hope. In a news cycle often dominated by division and negativity, this simple story of connection cut through the noise. It was a story about empathy, resilience, and the unexpected ways art can heal. People were captivated by the authenticity of the exchange, Dana's raw honesty and Snoop's cool, genuine compassion. Comment sections, usually a minefield of internet negativity, became forums of support. "This is what it's all about," one user wrote. "Using your platform to lift someone up. Mad respect for Snoop." Another commented, "Dana, you are a warrior. Your story and your strength are an inspiration to us all. Keep fighting." The story had created a ripple effect of positivity, inspiring thousands of people to share messages of love and encouragement. Even Snoop Dogg's own fans saw him in a new light. While they had always appreciated his music and his charismatic personality, this interaction revealed a depth of character that many had never seen. It wasn't a calculated PR move. It was a genuine moment of human connection that had accidentally become public. It reinforced his status not just as a rap legend, but as a genuinely good person. For Dana, this viral fame was a surreal experience. Suddenly, she was no longer an anonymous patient fighting a silent battle. She was a symbol of hope for thousands of people. News reporters requested interviews, and she was invited to speak to local support groups. Hesitantly at first, she began to share her story, realizing that her voice had a power she had never imagined. The experience transformed her understanding of community. Before, her world had shrunk to the size of her illness. Now, it had expanded to encompass a global community of people who were cheering for her. She felt less alone than she ever had in her life. The support of these thousands of strangers became a new kind of shield, reinforcing the one Snoop's music had already provided. The viral moment did more than just lift Dana's spirits. It gave her a new sense of purpose. Her struggle was no longer just about her own survival. It was about showing others that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to ask for help, and that there is strength in sharing your story. She had become an accidental advocate for hope. The city of Long Beach, which had featured so prominently in her message, also embraced her as a local hero. A neighborhood paper ran a front-page story about her, celebrating her courage and the kindness of the city's most famous son. She had gone from feeling like an invisible victim to being a cherished member of her community. The viral outpouring was a powerful reminder that behind every screen is a human being with a story, with struggles, and with a heart. Dana's message, sent out in a moment of desperate hope, had tapped into a collective desire for goodness and connection. It showed that one small act of kindness, amplified by the power of the internet, can create a wave of love that touches countless lives. In the months that followed, Dana's life continued to transform in ways she could never have imagined. The viral fame eventually subsided. The news cycle moved on. But the impact of the experience remained, etched permanently into the fabric of her being. Most importantly, her health began to improve. The grueling chemotherapy sessions finally came to an end, and she entered a new, hopeful phase of remission. The fight wasn't over, but the war had been won. She returned to her work as a graphic designer, but with a new perspective. She started a personal project, creating a series of art prints inspired by her journey. The designs were vibrant and full of life, incorporating imagery of Long Beach, sound waves from her favorite Snoop Dogg tracks, and powerful words like hope, queen, and warrior. A portion of the proceeds from her print sales was donated to cancer research and patient support charities. Her story had given her a platform, and she used it with grace and purpose. She became a volunteer at the very hospital where she had received her treatment, offering comfort and a listening ear to patients who were going through the same ordeal she had endured. She would tell them her story, not to brag, but to show them that there is a path through the darkness. She would often share Snoop's message, "Keep your head up." The connection with Snoop Dogg didn't end with that one public message. A few weeks after the story went viral, a package arrived at her door. Inside was a collection of his albums on vinyl, a custom Long Beach Queen t-shirt, and a handwritten note. It was short, just a few lines on a piece of notepaper, but it was deeply personal. He told her he was proud of her fight, and that her story had inspired him in turn. This private gesture meant more to Dana than all the public attention combined. It was a confirmation that his compassion was real, not just a performance for an audience. It solidified a bond that felt both surreal and deeply authentic. She framed the note and hung it on her wall. a constant reminder of the incredible, unexpected friendship that had blossomed from a moment of vulnerability. Dana's life was now richer and more meaningful than it had been even before her diagnosis. The illness had taken so much from her, but in its wake, it had left behind a profound appreciation for life, a deep sense of empathy, and an unshakable inner strength. She no longer took a single sunny day or a single beautiful melody for granted. She had learned that the most difficult journeys can lead to the most beautiful destinations. Her story became a modern fable about the power of human connection. It illustrated how art, in this case, the G-Funk of Snoop Dogg, can serve as a powerful vessel for healing and resilience. It's more than just beats and rhymes. It's a feeling, an attitude, a source of strength that can be tapped into when all other sources run dry. It's a testament to the fact that the artist often has no idea of the true impact their work has on the world. The experience also highlighted the often unseen character of public figures. Snoop Dogg, an artist known for his gangster rap origins, and his carefree persona, was revealed to be a man of deep empathy and kindness. His response wasn't just cool, it was a masterclass in how to support someone who was suffering. He didn't offer platitudes. He offered solidarity, empowerment, and love. For Dana, the journey had come full circle. She was no longer just a cancer survivor. She was a thriver. She was a beacon of hope for others, a testament to the power of a positive mindset, and a living example of how a single act of kindness can change a life. Her rhythm was back, stronger and more resonant than ever before. The music of her life was playing again, and it was a beautiful, funky, and triumphant song. She often walked the beaches of Long Beach now, not with a sense of loss, but with a feeling of profound gratitude. The palm trees swaying in the breeze no longer seemed indifferent. They seemed to be waving in celebration. She was a part of this city, and it was a part of her. She was a Long Beach queen, and she had the crown to prove it. Not one of gold and jewels, but one forged in fire and polished by kindness. This story is a powerful reminder for all of us. You never know the impact your words or your art might have on someone else. A small gesture of compassion can be a lifeline for someone who is drowning in silence. It teaches us to be brave, to share our struggles, and to reach out because you never know when a legend might just reach back. This is more than a story about a fan and a celebrity. It's a story about the good in the world. It's a story of how, even in our most difficult moments, we are not alone. There is a community of support waiting for us, sometimes in the most unexpected of places. It proves that a little bit of love and a dope beat can make all the difference. An amazing story of resilience and the incredible power of human connection. What did you take away from Dana's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thanks for watching, and as Snoop would say, nothing but love for ya. Stay strong.